This show is brought to you by Databril, the scalable Amazon PPC management for large Amazon sellers and brands. Visit sellersessions.com/agency for more details. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Today I bring back ChrisMcCabe. How you doing, Chris?
Wonderful. Always a pleasure to be
Excellent. Here. It's a very interesting time at the moment because we're experiencing new things in terms of content jacking. So we've had hijacking of listings, but now people are taking this stuff next level. I've alluded to this on the show a couple of times, but I haven't had anyone in to have a chat about it in full. So being the suspension guy that you are, you've got a few clients that are dealing with this.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like what we're going to talk about today is how to deal with it, how to cope with it, how to defend yourself. But what I've been dealing with lately, more than a few clients for sure, almost every day when I wake up, look at my email inbox, there's a bunch of messages from people who say, somebody changed my image, somebody changed the brand name, which is sort of disheartening if you're a private label brand owner, and all of a sudden the brand name isn't even the same on your listing, or other listing content on the detail page. And then most recently, last 2 days, 48 hours, people have been contacting me saying they've been locked out of their listing, so they can't get in there and change anything back at all. They're cutting tickets with Catalogue. They're doing whatever they can, but they're doing normal means of correcting mistakes or gaps or problems. This is not what this is. This is you're under attack, and you have to understand how to fight back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk me through a couple of scenarios. Obviously, you can't go into private data of a client of yours, but talk me through a scenario. So you've got a listing, the clients come to you, and basically what's happened, the bullets, titles, and stuff have been changed. In some cases, the images. But let's look about why would someone do that. So it's a great way for competitors to take you out of the game, isn't it?
Right.
Because it's going to be disruptive, one, in terms of sales. By changing your title, your brand name and stuff like that, that's going to affect keyword ranking and stuff as well. The same with the bullets as well.
It affects everything. It affects, and some people have made the mistake of thinking, well, this listing has never attracted that much interest from hijackers and competitors. I've been on my own on this listing. I'm a private label seller. I'm brand registered. And I'm kind of concerned that people don't understand what the purpose of the attack is. It's not just to take over your listing in every case. Sometimes they're just trying to grind you down and wear you down on something they don't even care about because they compete with you on other listings within the category, right? Yeah. So it's a distraction, partially.
So basically, it's the same as someone ordering a load of units of your stock. Like we've seen recently that Amazon are clamping down on people on returns and things like that. Right? So let's look at people have taken this to the next level. So where they'd be trying to trash your listing by returning your stock, you having to deal with A to Z claims, etc. This is the new way of nobbling your competitor in the marketplace, isn't it?
In the old days, which is not that long ago, but people would just hop on the listing, try to score some sales until you kicked them off, right, with an IP complaint, or you bought from them and you gave a test buy and you said, this is a counterfeit version of my product, and it was fairly straightforward, as annoying as that was.
Yeah.
And you probably had all the whack-a-mole, conversations with sellers. But now they're trying to get deeper into the catalog. However, they're managing to do that. They're exploiting gaps in the catalog system. They're trying to convince Amazon that they are the brand registered seller, not you. We can talk about how they're managing to accomplish that.
Yeah, let's go into that now. Talk to me through that.
I mean, that's the first step, right? I mean, if you are the brand registered seller, which everybody on their private label branded listing should be, your first step is to go to brand registry. The problem is they don't solve things for you quickly, right? They're under siege because tons of people are doing this and their team is only so big. It's a priority for Amazon to tighten up the brand registry process, but brand registry abuse is something they should have prepared for, and it's not something that they prepared adequately for. So you have to cut a ticket, get some help from brand registry, but you might have to escalate within the brand registry teams, within a day, right? You can't give your competitors too much time to exploit this.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is you have to start reporting that seller to marketplace abuse teams, MPA. You have to say there are listing violations, there are bad faith changes to the catalog happening. You have to know how to, write a report that's succinct, maybe half a page, maybe a page if you're showing some links and some other details that are essential. But a lot of sellers still don't know how to report properly to MPA. And we have a variety of ways of doing that, some of which we can talk about today. But the bottom line is that's part of this. You can't just ignore that because you don't know who to talk to, or you already wrote a message to community-help at Amazon and nobody got back to you. Most of the time, nobody's going to get back to you if you use that channel. So clearly you need to know the other channels to get to the policy teams and to poke them and to motivate them to act, because again, they're under siege, they're underwater, they're getting this round the clock. Yeah. And then just to close this out, the third way is, of course, pursuing trademark. Your trademark registered, presumably there's an intellectual property violation at play here, and you've got to report them for counterfeit product. You got to report them for violating your trademark, and grabbing your best attorney that knows how to report this to Amazon and get the seller off your listing. I mean, ideally, you get the seller suspended for these violations, because this is suspension-worthy behavior.
Well, let's just break that out a little bit, because you're talking about now people listing against the listing. So what I've heard, and I may be wrong here, and I'm happy to be corrected, is that people have been using the flat files, and in some cases they've used either Vendor Central or Vendor Express, and they're doing it like hundreds of listings, like screwing a lot of people up.
Right.
And they're just uploading lots of data on different ASINs, which is causing an issue. I mean, before we got on the show, you mentioned that there's a possibility that people have a little bit of help. It's not just external.
Right.
That could be causing this, but I can see it being a big problem for Amazon to deal with, and I can see why it is been the next stage. It's like when Amazon closed a loop in terms of using brand registry 2.0, but let's not forget with brand registry 2.0, it's not a closure of distribution. So we had James Thompson on the show just recently, and he opened my eyes to a few things as well. And he was saying is that, like what you mentioned about brand registry abuse, is that you can't use it to close the channel. The idea is with brand registry, you lock down your content. You complete all those fields that are left incomplete to fulfill on your listing. And the best way to deal with this is to really have a patent, because even the trademark gets you the brand registry, but that's only getting you a ticket to the ball, basically. It doesn't get you on the dance floor. And he was mentioning about brand gating, that he's had a dozen or so, if not a few more, where he's actually had a successful time with locking down brand gating. So I can see why this is going on. I'm not saying it's a good thing by any stretch of the imagination. It seems like Amazon closed one loop only for a set of sellers who operate in this manner as a way of see it as a fair means of competition. But what is the defendable aspects that you can do, and what are the best ways to deal with this? I know that you just mentioned a couple of things that we need to avoid doing, like was it the community one that you mentioned that would be no good?
Well, I mean, just taking a step back, people are contacting me a lot saying, I called seller help about this. Seller support, sorry. Yeah. I wrote to community help about this, the community-help queues. These are like the lowest levels of attacking a very serious problem.
Yeah. So,
and then I say, well, when they don't do anything, you need to do more, right? You can't just sit there and hope. And they say, yeah, I want to do more. How do I do more? So I teach them, if they're clients of mine, at least I'm teaching them how to escalate this stuff to get quicker action and to get real viable action back from these teams who are being gamed or confused. Catalogue is probably under fire right now from lots of perspectives, because they're obviously falling for certain tricks or gimmicks. I'm not sure if it's because they're not paying attention or they don't care or what, but somebody is gaming them. And if you're being gamed, you have to tighten up a little bit. And they're just trying to keep the lights on. They're under siege 24 hours a day. It's not really a good time for catalog managers and even for brand registry abuse teams to sit back and say, well, let's take a week summit somewhere. Let's go to Colorado and sit around and talk about this and figure out how we can fill some of these gaps so we won't be exploited. And our knowledge gaps won't be, nobody will be poking holes in those. They don't have any time to audit this in any meaningful way, right?
Yeah. So and the thing is,
are you willing? I think sellers kind of, just to finish that point, they have to this is another issue where you sort of have to just stop going to a group and posting your complaint publicly and getting a lot of pats on the back. I mean, you have to kind of toughen up a little bit and figure out how you can really get them to move on this.
Because it's not widespread at the moment, knowledge-wise, it's only just breaking. Yeah. So anyone who's had their listing taken over, they don't know what's going on. It's not like the standard, oh, it's a hijacker. Let's do this. Let's go through these steps. Let's get a suspension guy. Let's contact support. This is what the hell was going on here. Yeah. And so the next steps you're doing is that you're going to go to seller support, and then you're going to go to the catalog team. They're overwhelmed. Then there's going to be a few days. Then there's a Jeff Bond. Then there's a captive team. But the whole point of this conversation is to enlighten people that this is a real thing that's going on at the moment. It's not affected by everyone, of course. Amazon needs to get on top of this. But if you do notice things like your brand name's changed, then this could be one of the reasons. Because the other thing is as well, some people can be more subtle with this. And so instead of the ones where I've seen listings where the images are being replaced and it says FU on them, like with like kind of like Illuminati style faces and stuff on there. But it's the subtle changes that they're doing that puts people off the scent, you know? So it might take 2 or 3 weeks to resolve this issue. Yet in that time, that person can gain the rank and gain sales. And that's what the problem becomes. Yeah.
There was someone who came to me, it was the week I was in New York for the Seller Velocity Conference, right? So I couldn't hop on it right away. I already had a couple of these in the pipeline. And so he ended up saying, well, we'll just take the best shot at resolving this ourselves. And today's June 2nd. That wasn't resolved until May 20-something, right? 3 weeks of lost sales, best-selling ASIN. I mean, I'm assuming they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And mostly because they were winging it and they were trying to attack it, you know, using traditional methods to approach a non-traditional problem. So the quickest you can get out of that mindset and sort of think in an agile, flexible way, the better.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you've got to know about this stuff. Like if you're completely unaware, someone's changed your brand name and tweaked the title, maybe take your main keyword out, you're going to assume that's Amazon's playing around with it or there's a technical issue. And then you're going to be facing off with seller support, you know, no disrespect, but most of those guys on something like this are completely useless.
No, they have I've read the cases. They have absolutely no idea what to tell you. It's good to call seller support and get to somebody on the catalog team. I still tell people to make an attempt to just do it the easy, quick way. I mean, but don't expect the world from that. If you get somebody good at catalog who's like, oh yeah, I see that this person should have had no opportunity to make ASIN contributions like this. This is your listing.
So so obviously there's things like, obviously you'll go and change the listing back yourself if you can.
If you can.
This has come to the point though where some people are contacting support because they can't change the listing back. They don't have the right contributions to edit their own listing.
Right.
What is the triggers there, for instance? Because most people go, oh, shit, basically someone's wrecked my listing. I'll make the changes. But if they can't make those changes back, is there a point where that some of these people with the uploads that what they're doing, they've literally flamed the listing in terms of put abusive language or triggers in there that Amazon would know about. So it locks down their title so they can't change it, for instance.
I mean, either that or like we said a moment ago, maybe they have a friend on the inside, an account manager who's knocking on the door of Catalog for them, making an argument, hey, this person's under attack. You've heard everything about listing hijacks. Well, this person's got somebody else who says they're the trademark owner and they're only selling counterfeit items, and they convince Catalog on the inside to lock the listing down. So that's having a bird whispering in their ear type friend, which is, you know, we can talk about that some other time. But otherwise, they're just accusing the brand owner, the actual trademark registered party, of breaking rules and of changing listings and of selling items that they don't have the right to sell, but they're doing it through the catalog team. Catalog doesn't understand intellectual property, trademark infringement. Brand registry teams, how many of my former performance and policy teams understand brand registry backwards and forwards? Not that many. So they're taking advantage of how siloed Amazon teams are to convince them that something's going on that isn't going on.
Gotcha. And so what else is going on? You got anything else you want to cover?
I've heard, I still get a lot of emails from people or calls asking, why is it taking Amazon so long? They responded to me within 2 hours last time. And I'm just trying to once and for all get the message out that queue levels are changing constantly, right? Every hour. There's no point. Obviously, if you haven't heard from them in 7 or 8 days, then maybe your contact has been tossed out. They annotated your account and didn't respond to you. Some of those people, of course, you have to put off to the side as they've already been final worded and they've spammed Amazon to the point where, they'll never get an answer. But these aren't people who have been final worded for the most part. They're people who are coming to me because they don't want to wait. And they don't want to wait because they got an answer within an hour the last time they emailed. You can't expect that it'll be the same amount of time this time that it was yesterday or the day before or last hour or next hour. It doesn't work that way. So I'm just trying to get the message out that queue levels fluctuate. It depends on how many people are working globally at that moment. It depends on how many contacts they're still chugging through for the last 24 or 48 hours from the previous day. I mean, if they suspended 1,000 people last hour, then you're probably going to see 1,000 appeals going into seller performance, right? So you're not going to get the same response time. Yeah. And I guess maybe it's ignorance on my part or naivete, but on some level, I'm not sure why people aren't understanding that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And talking of suspensions, just give us an idea, like in terms of numbers, what do you reckon the ratio is in terms of account suspensions over listing suspensions on a day-to-day basis?
Good question. Day-to-day, listings are falling all the time, right? Look at the safety complaints that people are dealing with. There's a huge, especially for supplement sellers. I spent the last couple of days just helping people who've got safety complaints on their supplements.
Yeah.
We all know about inauthentic versus counterfeit. Those inauthentic account suspensions are common, but on an ASIN level, those are happening round the clock as well. Yeah. So listing suspensions are omnipresent. Account suspensions, there's an ebb and a flow, right? The trending stuff hits, a bunch of people get cleaned out. Some of those people get back on, some of them don't.
Yeah.
But it's, there's peaks and valleys with that. So, I mean, listing.
But don't most unless they've done the same thing 3 times, like review manipulation. I remember you saying before is that people have not gotten away with, but admitted to review manipulation. Completely open and Amazon's let them back on the platform. But is that that's their final shot? They get one shot at doing that.
Back in the day, you were only really supposed to get a second chance. We used to talk about seller already had second chance reinstatement. Would be putting that in the account annotations. You were really only supposed to get one opportunity. I know people hearing this might be thinking, wow, I've been suspended 5 times in 6 years. What the heck are you talking about? I think it's just because if they didn't let anyone back on after their second suspension, there would be tons and tons of sellers out there that could be making commission revenue for Amazon that aren't doing anything. So they had to relax that, right? But once you get into multiple suspensions, you have to, each time that happens, you have to consider yourself on your final chance.
Gotcha. So, cool. Is there anything
unless you don't care?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, where it is in like overseas sellers, some of the guys out there, they just new account. They run a new account. It makes no difference to them. New IP, new account. Off they run again. New business name.
Right.
And they can do that. But there's only so much you can do with it. If you're a domestic seller, you're not going to be able to keep building out new. Not that you want to, or you have that mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you can't count on these things. People do get suspended just figuring, I'll just hire one of these services and get back on. Or I'll go with the guy I went with last time. He said he had a friend inside the company and that guy's just going to turn the account on for me. Or, I hear lots of people getting suspended for this. So I'll be one of the lots of people who gets reinstated for it. I mean, if you can play fast and loose with your business and you're not afraid to gamble with it, then you can try all these things and you can score some short-term revenue gains and just see where the trends go and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, most of my clients are in it for the long haul. They're not in it for a short-term score.
Totally. Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we go?
No, just keep your eyes on product review abuse. The same types of behavior are happening there.
Is there any update there? Because obviously we're seeing a big change in reviews. There's aggregation. We're seeing in some cases tests are rolling out where you're seeing 2 or 3 reviews, like an overview of reviews on the listing, rather than focusing on the full volume of the reviews. And have you seen what's going on in terms of the separation? So whereas you have a parent and child configuration, you'd see all the reviews, wouldn't you? So how's that been affecting some of your clients?
Well, and then you've heard of everyone saying I had hundreds of legitimate reviews get deleted, and we'd have to talk a while about how that's happening. Obviously, Amazon's hypersensitive. If they're getting an accusation against you and they think there's abuse going on, they'd rather err on the side of deleting all your reviews. Yeah. Perhaps not doing a full investigation that would take half an hour to determine.
So there are people. Yeah, so the thing is, there was a bit of confusion. People thought they had loads of reviews missing when they clicked through to their variations, but then they realised that I haven't had all their reviews deleted. It was just that they would only see reviews on that variation rather than globally all the reviews.
There are plenty of people with their reviews wiped out, and I know them. Their clients or their sellers I know really well who have been in the game for a long time, and they are not pursuing review solicitation in any non-compliant ways. They're obviously being attacked by a competitor, being reported in a very sophisticated, savvy way by people who understand how these teams operate on the inside. The reports are taken seriously. I mean, that's only one real method. I mean, again, people are also whispering into the ear of a friend inside and saying, hey, I saw this guy's ad campaign. He's doing a promotion. I think there are loads of positive reviews that are coming in because of this, and maybe it's not just because of the promotion. It looks like they're also using PayPal I mean, if you've got an advocate inside the company who's going to listen to this and go to bat for you, then you can probably push through a PRA report, a product review abuse team report, and you can succeed in getting a lot of legitimate reviews deleted. Yeah. So this is becoming commonplace. I mean, I don't know. You can tell me if you think this was as bad 2 months ago. I don't think it was. I think within the last 60 days, this has gotten 10 times worse. And some people are having limited success getting these reviews reinstated. We're working on it for some people. But it's still kind of bad reviews are disappearing, maybe in smaller numbers than positive ones, but that's happening as well. And we have to kind of do another podcast on why that's happening. Because eventually somebody will say, I left some legitimate product reviews on this seller, on this product, and they're legit, and I'm a real person, and Amazon keeps deleting them, and I'm not a reviewer that, has been flagged for bad behavior. I'm a real person. So we don't really tend to hear those stories, but that'll happen eventually.
Cool. All right. Let's wrap that there. How can people reach you, Chris?
Yep. So obviously ecommercechris.com, and my email is chris@ecommercechris.com. Just go to my website. We've been doing some new and interesting things there. And of course, you can always book a call with me if you're having this kind of problem. Things should be a lot easier to find.
Cool.
All righty.
Okay, guys. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Chris, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Take care.